Hey all, we're at the end and the beginning of another week, and I'm just doing this straight after watching the Colts and the Saints game, and it was fun watching it. Sad that the Colts lost, but man, the Saints did come back from a 10 nothing deficit to win the game, so that was great, and it was fun watching it with a whole bunch of Indiana fans who weren't too happy with the outcome, but oh well, someone's got to win and someone's got to lose. But anyway, my week started pretty much the same. Monday was a nice day off. On Tuesday, we had to go out to the market, so we planned up and we left town and went to the market, got some stuff repaired, ended up buying a few things that we needed for church. We needed to buy a new screen for the projector because the one that we had earlier would not be a proper fit for this place, so we managed to get a really decent one at a really good price. So that worked out really well. Later on that evening, was back at the office, and then we were working towards getting an internet connection at the office, and that's just something that has been taking a bit of time. But we tried contacting a private company, but they would not possibly be able to do it now. I know that because on that day he came in and said, "Oh, the box was a little too far," but he would still try, which ended up not happening. Wednesday, I was a bit down. I was running a bit of a flu, but still I had to get out in the morning and try and find a place to transfer some money. So because for some books that we ordered for church, and it's funny the amount of places I managed to find which would actually let you get the money but would not allow you to send the money. So that was pretty funny, and then ended up having to look for Western Union, which I just could not find in the area, which is kind of weird. But all that worked really well because some people that we know were in Hong Kong and they managed to do the transfer. So that was really great, and it was a real blessing because someone that person actually ended up paying for the books. On Thursday, we actually all met up as a team at Pastor's Place in the morning and just had a brief meeting, and ended up having lunch with Pastor and his wife, and it was a great time. And after that, went back to church, and that evening we actually started the CNC in Hindi that week, and it was great to see a few people come from the locality, and it was great, and it was fun speaking in only Hindi, which is something that I know I need to brush up on, and it's there, but it's got to come back. So that was great. The next day was probably the craziest day this year that I've had. Morning started off with my maid being not well and having a bit of a fever, so I actually got ready and was leaving that morning for to actually go to the hospital and then head off to the cemetery for a funeral of a baby that was stillborn. These are two people that work with YWAM over here, and she comes from a Hindu family, and the baby had actually been dead a few days in her womb, and the day before she had actually delivered the baby, and that morning we were going to sort of have a funeral service for them. But it's just amazing to see, the faith and knowing that God is in control and everything happens in His will, and He gives and He takes, and that's precisely the testimony that Sonali, that's the lady that delivered the stillborn, she had, and that's what she said, and she held on to, and it's just great to see the hope and the assurance that we have in Christ. And I left the house that morning with my maid being at home. Ended up calling mom, and I had reached pastor's place to sort of pick up his wife, as well as the two guys, the intern Rahul and the guy that works in our office, Stylaja, and picked them up, and then ended up having to come all the way back home, pick up Shelly, and which is the maid, and take her to the hospital. Thankfully, it was the same hospital, and thankfully nothing was wrong with her, but she just had a bit of a flu, so she basically took a taxi back home. When we walked on to the cemetery, it was crazy. We just couldn't find parking, and I ended up parking in a street that I didn't know whether it was actually a place where you could park. All I knew was that the parkomat was full, the hospital was full, so there was nowhere really to park. But thankfully, nothing happened, and it was a safe. It ended up being a safe place to park, and the funeral was great. It was great to see friends there to support, and it's it's just such an assurance that we have that when we get to heaven, we know all the dead will be there, and it was just great walking through that seminary, and believing in and knowing that death has no hold on us and that has no sting on us. And yeah, it was just one of these crazy days. And after that was over, we ended up going to a really famous South Indian restaurant and having lunch there. It's known as Anand. The food was great. The dosas are really good, and I recommend people to try it if they're ever here. After which we went to the Cary Baptist Church and parked the car there, and ended up walking out into the market to buy some things for the office because we needed like printer cartridges and things like that. And this is actually a market that is a bit way out, but it gives you really really good prices compared to other places. It's at least 200 to 300 rupees cheaper per cartridge. So that ends up being a big difference in terms of your final price. Well, I got back home pretty late that day because traffic was just a mess. It just wore my legs out, and then I got back home, and of course Shelly was doing a lot better, but she of course hadn't cooked anything. So I said, okay, let's. I decided to walk out and get dinner, and I ended up with my knees almost giving out on me by the time I got back because I went to one place and then they didn't have what I wanted to eat, and then ended up going to another place and having dinner with. Of course, I had a friend of mine with me, and at the end of it, I was just like really tired, and I just thank God for days and times when you can come back and just rest and relax. Well, the next day was of course Saturday, which basically meant we had worship practice that day. And after worship practice, we went out to the school and tried to set up the projector there, which is of course just a screen, and so we could take it down, and during the week while the school is there, at least it's the screen's protected, and we can put it in the storeroom over there. And that worked out well, so we got that done, and basically came home and spent the evening at home, running through the PowerPoints and preparing things for the next day. Church was good, and Pastor continued his series on Joshua, and today he focused on Joshua 24 and how it talks about the present, and Joshua's charge to the people, where he gives them a passionate charge. The reference for that was Joshua 24:14, and Pastor basically spoke about three different points. First one being the fear of the Lord, and which basically talks about the work of God, which the chapter has. Talks about the wrath of God and the will of God, and then he went into the charge to be faithful, and the sincerity, the singleness of heart, and the highest standards, and sticking to the highest standards. And the last point which he had was the charge to forsake the idols, and there he referred to Hebrews 12, and it was a great message, and we had a great time of worship and praise. And after that, I actually got a drop back home because I sent the car for repairs, because there were some things that needed to get done on the cars. Of course, I didn't cause those damages, but it was yeah. So the car was off, but Pastor Noel dropped me close to the house, so I managed to get back home. And then that evening we met up for the youth program, and that was a blessing. We had about 8 people there this week, and one of them, of course, didn't come because he's preparing for his board exams. But we basically looked at the same theme of dealing with problems as a Christian, and we watched the movie Flywheel. I don't know if many of you have seen it, but it's a great movie, and it's such a blessing to be able to see examples and even movies and things that bring out so much what it is to be a Christian and how to live a Christian life. That evening, I was pretty tired, and went with a friend of mine to this restaurant, which was really nice and a big change. It's known as Afra, and the food was pretty good, and I was really happy at the ambiance and everything. And it kind of reminded me a bit of Moore Cafe in Dubai, except that on a weekend it wasn't even crowded. There was, I think, 2 or 3 other tables that had people there. But all in all, it's been a great meeting, and it's just been a great blessing to see how God's been at work, and how it's such a call to live a Christian life. And I pray that you're encouraged and you're blessed, and that you live a life that is pleasing to God. And that's something that's been a great challenge to me. Also, another update for most of you: I have been in communication with 2 universities and people from there, and that's something that's in order right now. I'm working actually at putting in forms and filling up forms and sending them in, and I know that whatever God wills will happen, and whether it's now or later. I'm planning to probably get out this fall, but you never know. But anyway, do keep me in prayer, and I pray that you have a great week, and God bless.